Flight 428 from Boston to San Francisco departed on a gray November morning, carrying 149 passengers across the country through cold northeastern skies. Aaron settled into his seat in 19C, preparing for the 6-hour transcontinental flight with his laptop and headphones. The aircraft was only two-thirds full, leaving many middle seats empty. Among the passengers was a woman in her early 40s sitting alone in seat 12A by the window, who'd boarded with red-rimmed eyes and a heaviness in her movements that suggested deep emotional pain. Flight attendant Michelle Rodriguez noticed the woman during boarding. Her withdrawn demeanor, her refusal to make eye contact, the way she clutched her purse as if it contained something precious or dangerous. Michelle made a mental note to check on her during the flight. The woman's name was Catherine Morgan, though Michelle didn't know that yet. Catherine was a single mother of 2 children, Emma, age 9, and Jacob, age 7, living in Boston and working as a high school English teacher. But 3 weeks ago, Catherine's world had collapsed. She'd been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer that had metastasized to her liver and lungs. The oncologist had been brutally honest. 6 months to live, maybe less, with treatment offering minimal benefit and significant suffering. Catherine had 2 young children who needed her, a job she loved, a life she wasn't ready to leave. But cancer didn't care about readiness, or fairness, or children who needed their mother. For 3 weeks, Catherine had tried to process the diagnosis, had tried to figure out how to tell Emma and Jacob that mommy was dying. But the weight of it had crushed her. The thought of her children growing up without her, of missing their graduations and weddings and grandchildren, of leaving them alone in a world that could be cruel and hard, it was unbearable. Catherine had spent sleepless nights researching her condition, consulting with doctors and coming to a terrible conclusion. 6 months of watching her children see her deteriorate. 6 months of pain and suffering and fear, followed by death that would traumatize Emma and Jacob, or she could spare them that trauma. She could end things on her own terms before the disease destroyed her, before her children had to watch her suffer. Catherine had planned everything carefully. She'd written a will. She'd arranged guardianship of Emma and Jacob with her sister in California. She'd written letters to her children to be given to them when they were older, explaining how much she loved them and why she'd made this choice. And she'd boarded Flight 428 with a bottle of prescription sleeping pills she'd been hoarding, planning to take them in the airplane bathroom somewhere over the Midwest, timing her death so that when the plane landed in San Francisco, her sister would be there to take custody of the children immediately, giving them stability in the chaos of loss. Catherine had convinced herself this was mercy, that a quick death while traveling was better than months of watching her deteriorate. 90 minutes into the flight, Catherine pulled out airline stationery from the seat pocket and began writing additional goodbye letters. One to Emma, explaining why mommy had to leave. One to Jacob, trying to make a 7-year-old understand death and choice and love. One to her sister, thanking her for agreeing to raise the children. One to her students, apologizing for abandoning them mid-semester. Catherine's tears fell on the paper as she wrote, her handwriting becoming shakier with each page. She was saying goodbye to everyone she loved, preparing to end her life at 37,000 feet because continuing to live felt more painful than dying. Michelle began beverage service, pushing her cart through the cabin. When she reached row 12, she glanced at the woman in 12A and froze. The woman was crying silently, bent over the tray table writing what appeared to be multiple letters. Michelle could see partial phrases, "My dearest Emma, take care of your brother. I love you more than life." And sitting on the seat beside the woman was an open purse, inside which Michelle could clearly see a prescription bottle that looked very full. Every instinct Michelle had developed in 8 years of flying screamed that something terrible was happening. Michelle knelt in the aisle beside Catherine's seat, her voice gentle. "Ma'am, are you okay? Is there anything I can help you with?" Catherine looked up, startled, quickly trying to cover the letters. "I'm fine, just writing some notes, I'm fine." But her red eyes, tear-stained face, and shaking hands told a different story. Michelle glanced at the visible portions of the letters, the phrases about children, the tone of goodbye, the finality, and that pill bottle in the purse. Michelle's training included recognizing passengers in crisis, and every indicator suggested this woman was planning self-harm. "Ma'am, my name is Michelle. I can see you're going through something very difficult. Would you like to talk about it? Sometimes it helps to share with someone who cares." Catherine's first instinct was to refuse, to insist everything was fine, to protect her plan. But something in Michelle's kind eyes, her genuine concern, made Catherine's carefully constructed walls crack. "You can't help me," Catherine whispered. "Nobody can. I'm dying and I have 2 children, and I can't bear to make them watch me deteriorate. I'm trying to spare them that pain." Michelle's heart seized. This woman was terminally ill, and planning to end her life on this flight to spare her children prolonged suffering. Ma'am, I understand you're in pain. But ending your life isn't the answer. Your children need you, whatever time you have left. Please, let me get you some help. Let me call ahead and have counselors meet the plane. Please don't give up. Catherine shook her head, tears flowing freely now. You don't understand. I have maybe 6 months. 6 months of pain and hospitals, and my children watching me die piece by piece. Or I can end it cleanly, quickly, and they can remember me as I was, not as a skeleton wasted by disease. I'm doing this for them, but here's what Michelle understood, that Catherine, in her pain and fear, couldn't see. Michelle's own mother had died of cancer when Michelle was 12, and Michelle had spent her entire adult life wishing she'd had more time with her mother, even painful time, even time watching her suffer. Ma'am, I lost my mother to cancer when I was young, and I would give anything for 6 more months with her, even if those months were hard. Your children won't remember the suffering as much as they'll remember you were there, fighting for them, loving them until the very end. Please don't take that time away from them. Please don't take yourself away from them before you have to. Catherine stared at Michelle, this stranger who understood grief, who'd lost her own mother, who was begging Catherine not to make the same choice. But they're so young, they don't understand death. How do I explain that mommy is leaving forever? Michelle took Catherine's hands. You don't explain it all at once. You explain it day by day, moment by moment. You make memories they can hold on to. You write them letters they can read when they're older. You record videos of you reading them stories. You love them fiercely with every moment you have left. That's what my mother did for me. And those memories, those final months, they're precious to me even though they were painful. Your children deserve that time with you. Catherine felt something shift inside her. The plan that had seemed like mercy suddenly looked like theft, stealing 6 months from Emma and Jacob, stealing the chance to prepare them, stealing precious time together. I'm so scared, Catherine whispered. I'm scared of the pain. I'm scared of becoming someone my children don't recognize. I'm scared of leaving them. Michelle squeezed her hands. I know, but fear shouldn't make you run from life. It should make you hold on to life harder. Every moment matters. Every hug, every story, every I love you. Your children will carry those forever. Please don't rob them of more moments. Please don't rob yourself. Michelle made a decision. She stood up and walked to the galley, where she called the cockpit. Captain, I have a passenger in medical and emotional crisis. I need to speak with you immediately. Captain David Martinez came to the galley. Michelle explained quickly. Terminally ill passenger, planning suicide on the flight, needs immediate intervention. David's face grew grim. We're diverting to Denver. It's closest. We'll get her psychiatric help on the ground. Michelle returned to Catherine. Ma'am, the captain is diverting to Denver so we can get you help. Counselors will meet you there. You don't have to face this alone. Catherine felt panic and relief warring inside her. Her plan was being stopped. But maybe that's what she'd wanted, for someone to care enough to stop her, to tell her she mattered, to remind her that her life still had value even as it was ending. What about my children? I left them with a babysitter. They don't know I was planning. She couldn't finish. Michelle pulled out her phone. What's your sister's number? We'll call her. We'll make sure your children are cared for while you get help. I promise you won't be alone in this. The captain announced the diversion to confused passengers who wondered why a medical emergency required landing in Denver instead of continuing to San Francisco. But Michelle stayed with Catherine, holding her hand, talking her through the fear and pain. Catherine told Michelle about Emma and Jacob, about her diagnosis, about the impossible choice between dying slowly with them or dying quickly to spare them. Michelle listened without judgment, offering comfort and the perspective of someone who'd lived through losing a parent and understood what children needed most: time, presence, love, not protection from pain, but companionship through it. Aaron noticed the unusual attentiveness of the flight attendant to the woman in 12A, the diversion announcement, the quiet intensity of whatever was happening. He didn't know the details, but he sensed something significant was unfolding, a life hanging in balance, a choice being unmade, a woman being pulled back from the edge by someone who cared enough to intervene. The plane landed in Denver 28 minutes after the diversion decision. Paramedics and mental health crisis counselors boarded immediately, but Catherine refused to leave Michelle's side. Please stay with me. I don't know these people. I need someone who understands. Michelle looked at the captain, who nodded. Stay with her as long as she needs you. Michelle accompanied Catherine off the plane, through the terminal to a private room where crisis counselors took over. Catherine spent 3 hours with counselors who specialized in terminal illness and end-of-life crisis. They helped her understand that her desire to protect her children from suffering was normal, but misguided, that children needed presence more than they needed protection, that dying cleanly would actually traumatize them more than having time to prepare and say goodbye. The counselors connected Catherine with palliative care specialists, grief counselors who could help her talk to Emma and Jacob, and support groups for parents with terminal illness. They gave Catherine tools to manage her fear and resources to make her remaining time meaningful. Michelle stayed the entire time, missing her flight home, missing her schedule, staying because Catherine needed her, and because Michelle understood grief and knew that sometimes a person's entire life trajectory could change based on whether someone cared enough to intervene. When Catherine finally emerged from counseling, looking exhausted but more stable, she hugged Michelle tightly. "You saved my life. I was going to kill myself today. You stopped me. You reminded me my children need me even if I'm dying. Thank you. Thank you for caring about a stranger." Michelle hugged her back, crying. "You're not a stranger. You're a mother fighting for time with her children. You're someone who deserves support and compassion. Please use the resources they gave you. Please call the hotlines when you're scared. Please live every moment you have left with Emma and Jacob. They need their mother. Even a dying mother is better than no mother. I know because I lost mine too soon. Don't let your children lose you before they have to." The airline arranged for Catherine to fly to San Francisco the next day, accompanied by a nurse who'd ensure she arrived safely to her sister. But that night, Catherine called her children from her Denver hotel room. She told them she loved them. She told them Mommy had gotten sick and needed to stay a bit longer but would be home soon. She didn't tell them about the cancer yet. The counselors had advised waiting until she was face-to-face to have that conversation. But hearing Emma's voice say, "I miss you, Mommy," and Jacob's excited chatter about his school day reminded Catherine why she had to keep living, keep fighting, keep being present even through pain. Catherine arrived in San Francisco the next day and immediately began intensive palliative care and counseling. Her sister helped her tell Emma and Jacob age-appropriate truths about Mommy's illness. The children were scared but grateful to understand what was happening. Catherine followed the counselor's advice, making videos for future milestones, writing letters for her children to read as they grew, creating memory books, spending quality time doing simple things they loved. The months Catherine had viewed as a burden of suffering became precious time of connection, love, and preparation. Michelle stayed in contact with Catherine throughout her illness. They texted regularly, Michelle offering support and encouragement, Catherine sharing updates about her children and her treatment. 6 months after Flight 428, Catherine was still alive, defying the initial prognosis. 8 months later, still fighting. The cancer was progressing, the pain was real, but Catherine was living instead of running. And Emma and Jacob were preparing for the loss instead of being traumatized by sudden abandonment. Aaron learned the full story through his journalistic connections and asked permission to write about it. Catherine agreed, hoping her story might help other terminal patients who felt tempted to end things prematurely. Aaron's article, "The Flight Attendant Who Saw Goodbye Letters and Changed One Mother's Final Chapters," detailed Catherine's plan, Michelle's intervention, and the 8 months of life Catherine had gained by choosing to live rather than die on Flight 428. "Michelle Rodriguez saved my life not by preventing my death. Cancer will eventually take me," Catherine said in Aaron's article. "She saved my life by reminding me that the time I have left matters, that my children need me even if I'm dying, that making memories is better than avoiding pain. I was going to rob Emma and Jacob of 8 months with their mother because I was scared. Michelle showed me that love is braver than fear, that presence is more important than protection, that dying gradually with my children is better than dying suddenly without them. I have weeks left now, maybe days, but I've had 8 months I almost threw away. 8 months of hugs and stories and I love yous. 8 months of preparing my children instead of traumatizing them. That's Michelle's gift to me and to Emma and Jacob." The article went viral, shared by millions who were moved by Catherine's choice to live despite terminal diagnosis, by Michelle's compassionate intervention, by the reminder that time matters and love matters and presence matters especially when the end is approaching. Mental health organizations used the article in suicide prevention training. Airlines enhanced their training on recognizing passengers in crisis. And thousands of people facing terminal illness reached out to say Catherine's story had helped them choose continued life over premature death. Michelle received recognition from the airline for her intervention, but she deflected credit just as she had when saving Catherine. "I just did what anyone should do when they see someone suffering. I paid attention, I cared, I intervened. Catherine did the hard work of choosing to live. I just reminded her why that choice mattered." But Catherine and her family knew better. Michelle had been the difference between Catherine dying alone in an airplane bathroom and Catherine spending 8 precious months with her children. That difference was everything. Catherine Morgan died 9 months after Flight 428, surrounded by her sister and her children in a hospice facility, after months of love and preparation and memory-making. Emma and Jacob were devastated but not traumatized. They'd had time to understand, time to say goodbye, time to know their mother loved them and hadn't abandoned them. At Catherine's funeral, her sister read a letter Catherine had written to Michelle. "Dear Michelle, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. The cancer finally won, but I want you to know that because of you, I didn't die on Flight 428 in November. I died in June, surrounded by love, having spent 9 months with my children that I almost threw away, 9 months of Emma's laughter and Jacob's hugs, 9 months of bedtime stories and school pickups, and ordinary moments that became precious because I knew they were limited. You gave me those months by caring about a stranger, by seeing my pain and refusing to let me make an irreversible choice based on fear. You saved my life, Michelle. Not forever, cancer makes that impossible. But you saved me from dying too soon, from robbing my children of time with their mother, from making fear win over love. Thank you for seeing those goodbye letters and not walking away. Thank you for reminding me that dying mothers still matter to their children. Thank you for giving me 9 more months of being mommy. I'll carry your kindness with me wherever I go next, and Emma and Jacob will carry memories I almost didn't give them. That's your legacy. That's your gift. Thank you for everything. Love always, Catherine." Michelle read the letter through tears, surrounded by Catherine's family and the 100+ mourners who'd come to honor a beloved teacher and mother. "Catherine taught me something too," Michelle told the assembled crowd. "She taught me that intervention matters, that caring matters, that the time we have, however long or short, is worth fighting for. She could have been angry that I stopped her plan. Instead, she used the time I helped give her to love her children fiercely. That's heroism, not me stopping her, but Catherine choosing life even when it was hard, even when it hurt, even when she knew the ending. I'm honored I got to know her. I'm grateful I could help, and I promise Emma and Jacob that I'll always remember their mother as someone who loved them enough to keep living even when dying seemed easier." Emma and Jacob, now 10 and 8, hugged Michelle after the funeral. "Thank you for making Mommy stay," Emma whispered. "We needed more time with her." "Thank you for giving us that," Jacob nodded, clinging to Michelle. "Mommy told us you saved her. That makes you a hero." Michelle knelt to their level, looking into eyes that had Catherine's warmth. "Your mother is the hero. She fought to stay with you. She loved you more than she feared pain. That's real courage. I just reminded her of what she already knew, that you needed her. She did the rest." 5 years after Catherine's death, Michelle visited Emma and Jacob, now 15 and 13, living with their aunt in California. The children had grown into thoughtful teenagers who remembered their mother with love instead of trauma, who'd been able to grieve her properly instead of being destroyed by sudden abandonment. "Mom's last months were hard," Emma told Michelle. "She was in pain. She was scared. But she was present. She read to us every night, even when she could barely stay awake. She recorded videos for our future graduations and weddings. She wrote us letters we still read when we miss her. If she'd died on that plane like she planned, we wouldn't have any of that. We'd just have the trauma of Mommy disappearing. You gave us closure, Michelle. You gave us time to prepare. Thank you for that gift." Michelle hugged these children who'd lost their mother but hadn't been destroyed by it, who'd been able to say goodbye properly, who carried memories instead of just trauma. "Your mother gave you that gift by choosing to live her final months instead of running from them. I just helped her see that choice clearly. But Emma, Jacob, your mother loved you so much she pushed through her fear and pain to be with you. Never forget that. And never forget that when you face hard things in life, you come from a mother who was brave enough to choose love over fear. That strength is in you too." 10 years after Flight 428, Michelle was promoted to lead flight attendant trainer, teaching new crew members about recognizing passengers in crisis. She used Catherine's story with permission from Emma and Jacob as a case study in intervention that saved a life. "You'll serve thousands of passengers in your careers," Michelle would tell trainees. "Most will be routine, but occasionally you'll encounter someone in crisis, medical, emotional, psychological. Your job is to see them, to care, to intervene." Catherine Morgan was writing goodbye letters to her children. "I could have assumed it was private, walked away, let her handle her own problems, but I engaged. I asked questions, I cared, and that intervention gave her 9 more months with her children. 9 months that changed the trajectory of 2 children's lives, from trauma to healing, from abandonment to closure." Never underestimate the impact of one conversation, one moment of caring. It might save a life. The trainees always asked the same question: what if you'd been wrong? What if she'd just been writing normal letters, and you'd embarrassed her by assuming crisis? Michelle's answer was consistent: "Then I'd have apologized for the intrusion and moved on. The risk of being wrong and embarrassed is acceptable. The risk of being right and doing nothing is not. If I see indicators of crisis, I engage, always, because one Catherine is worth 100 false alarms. I'll take embarrassment over missing someone who needs help any day." Aaron continued following the story, writing updates on the 5th and 10th anniversaries of Catherine's death. His articles focused on Emma and Jacob's growth, on how Catherine's choice to live her final months had shaped their ability to process grief, on Michelle's continued commitment to passenger welfare. Flight 428 was supposed to be Catherine Morgan's final flight, Aaron wrote in his 10th anniversary piece. She boarded planning to die over the Midwest. She deplaned in Denver, choosing to live whatever time remained. That choice, enabled by Michelle Rodriguez's intervention, gave 2 children 9 months with their dying mother instead of the trauma of sudden abandonment. Now, 10 years later, Emma is thriving in college, studying to be a nurse, wanting to care for terminal patients the way Michelle cared for her mother. Jacob is a high school student passionate about mental health advocacy, speaking about the importance of intervention and suicide prevention. Catherine's choice to live rather than die created ripples that continue spreading. Every patient Emma helps, every life Jacob's advocacy touches, it all traces back to Michelle seeing goodbye letters and refusing to walk away. That's legacy. That's impact. That's why caring about strangers matters. Michelle retired from flying at age 65, her career marked by exceptional service and countless lives touched. But at her retirement party, when colleagues asked about her most memorable flight, Michelle didn't hesitate. Flight 428, November 2014. The day I convinced a dying mother to keep living for her children. I've served thousands of flights, but that one flight, that one passenger, that one intervention, it defined everything I believe about this job. We're not just here to serve beverages. We're here to see people, to care about them, to help them when they're in crisis. Catherine Morgan taught me that one conversation can change everything. I'm grateful I had that conversation. I'm grateful she listened. I'm grateful for every moment she gained with Emma and Jacob because of it. Emma, now 23 and a registered nurse working in hospice care, attended Michelle's retirement party with Jacob, now 21 and studying psychology, with a focus on crisis intervention. They presented Michelle with a gift, a photo album chronicling their mother's final 9 months, the months Michelle had helped give them. Photos of Catherine reading to them, playing games, laughing despite pain, present despite illness. These moments exist because you cared, Emma told Michelle. Every memory in this album, every moment we had with Mom after that November flight, you made possible. Thank you for seeing her pain and not walking away. Thank you for giving us time to say goodbye. Thank you for changing our family's story from trauma to closure. Michelle cried as she looked through the photos, seeing Catherine's love for her children captured in images, seeing Emma and Jacob's resilience forged through proper grief instead of sudden abandonment. Your mother was remarkable, Michelle told them. She was scared and in pain, but she chose to live for you. That's real love. That's real courage. I just reminded her of what mattered. She did everything else, the hard work of fighting through fear, of being present despite pain, of loving you through the worst time of her life. Honor her by living bravely like she did, by choosing love over fear like she did, by being present for the people who need you like she was present for you. 15 years after Catherine's death, Flight 428 continued operating the Boston to San Francisco route. But in airline training materials, in suicide prevention programs, in counseling services worldwide, Flight 428 lived forever. The flight where a mother planned to die and a flight attendant convinced her to live, where goodbye letters were seen and intervention happened, where 9 months of life were saved for 2 children who needed their mother. Michelle Rodriguez's decision to engage rather than ignore, to care rather than dismiss, to intervene rather than assume, had saved Catherine's life for 9 precious months and had shaped Emma and Jacob's entire trajectory from trauma to healing. That's the story of Flight 428 and the goodbye letters that almost weren't stopped. A story of terminal diagnosis and the temptation to run from suffering. A story of a flight attendant who paid attention and cared enough to intervene. A story of a mother who chose difficult life over easy death because she was reminded her children needed her. A story of 9 months gained, 9 months of love and memories and preparation that transformed tragedy from abandonment to closure. Catherine Morgan died at 37, far too young, taken by disease, but she died surrounded by love after months of precious time with her children. That's not how her story was supposed to end. She was supposed to die alone in an airplane bathroom over Nebraska, leaving her children traumatized and confused. Instead, she died with dignity, with preparation, with love, because Michelle Rodriguez saw pain and refused to ignore it. Every terminal patient who reads Catherine's story and chooses continued life over premature death, every child who gets more time with a dying parent because that parent was encouraged to live rather than run, every intervention that happens because someone cared enough to engage, it all traces back to Flight 428 and the goodbye letters Michelle refused to let be final. That's legacy. That's the power of caring. That's why one flight attendant's decision to kneel beside a crying passenger and ask, "Are you okay?" matters so much. Because sometimes that question, asked with genuine concern, saves a life. Sometimes it gives children 9 more months with their mother. Sometimes it changes everything. Michelle Rodriguez asked that question. Catherine Morgan answered honestly. And 2 children got to say goodbye properly, instead of being destroyed by sudden loss. That's Flight 428. That's the goodbye letters that became 9 more months of hello. That's the intervention that mattered. That's the reminder that we all have the power to save lives simply by paying attention, by caring, by refusing to walk past suffering and assume someone else will handle it. Michelle was that someone for Catherine. Who will we be that someone for? That's the question her story asks. That's the challenge it issues. See the pain, care about it, intervene. Because sometimes the person writing goodbye letters is really hoping someone will give them a reason to keep saying hello. Michelle gave Catherine that reason. Catherine gave Emma and Jacob 9 more months of mommy. And Emma and Jacob grew up able to grieve rather than traumatized by abandonment. All because one flight attendant noticed goodbye letters and cared enough to stop them from being final. That's heroism. That's humanity at its best. That's why Michelle's story matters and always will.